Hello, this is your host Sharon Pulliam of A Time of Inspiration.
A Time of Inspiration is intentional in helping you to become the best you that God has created you to be. My co-host and I, we will come to you every week to inspire you, to uplift you, and give you informative information. My co-hosts, Dr. Kina Peppers and LaKoya LaShawn, we appreciate you so much for tuning in to A Time of Inspiration.
Hello, and thank you so much for tuning in to A Time of Inspiration. I am your host, Dr. Kina Peppers, and unfortunately today our host Sharon Pulliam is not here. She is out on assignment, and I hate that she's going to miss this, but we have a wonderful program for you today. And I'm sitting here with the co-host.
Hi, Monique Slaughter from iConsult Group.
Yes, and today we have a phenomenal guest. Talk about fashion, Chicago. We have Barbara Bates here, and she is right here in Chicago. However, she does everything everywhere. Beautiful material, leather trim, everything that you need. How are you today, Barbara?
I'm fantastic, and thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Wonderful. So we want to hear a little bit about your designs and what you're doing right now.
Okay, so the Barbara Bates story. So I grew up over here on the west side of Chicago.
Okay.
And I went to Chicago public schools. Marshall High School is where I graduated from, and always, as far back as I can remember, I wanted to be involved in fashion.
Oh.
So Barbie dolls were the big thing when I was growing up, but Barbie dolls then used to have like packages of clothing that came with them, and they were like well-tailored clothing. I don't know when they stopped doing that, but I can remember it very well because for me, I just needed the one doll, and I wanted to go and get like the packages of all of the clothes that came with it. So my mom and her two sisters were like the three most beautiful women in the world to me, and they really dressed wonderfully, and I always looked up to them. And I have to say that fashion for me was innate, that it started just by being around, you know, women that were beautiful and dressed beautiful and loved beautiful clothing. So that's really like my start of like how fashion, you know, came into my world.
So it was ingrained.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So how did you get started?
So in high school, I won Best Dress. I had somebody make my garment for me, so I kind of like started there. After that, I worked 9 to 5 jobs in the city of Chicago. I would go to Marshall Fields, which had an incredible fabric department.
Yes, they did.
And I would buy my fabrics. I would take the stuff back to my friends who knew how to sew. They would make my garments. I would wear them to work after, you know, a couple of years of wearing my own designs and my friends saying, hey, make me one. Then working in corporate America, the girls at the job coming to my desk saying, I like what you're wearing. Oh, where'd you get that from? Then I thought it's time for me to start saying I'm a designer.
Right.
Although I had not gone to school for fashion design, but what I did was I had a ma way of just going by fabric and sketching simple things and having things made up. So at one of my 9 to 5 jobs, the girls would come by my desk, and I thought now it's time for me to tell them that I design things. So they say, well, could you design me one? So I've always had like an entrepreneurial spirit, and I would tell the girls to meet me in the bathroom on the 15th and the 31st. We know what those days are. And I would bring things to work, and they would buy things from me, and then I start taking their measurements, and then they start custom ordering things for me, and that's really how Barbara Bates Designs actually started.
Wow.
And that was back in like the mid 80s. I left corporate America because I knew that I would never grow in corporate America because I only did enough to get by, and I got fired at every job that I had in corporate America. And so
because you were in the bathroom selling.
Absolutely. I was using up all their typing paper, sketching. So yeah, I was never working for them anyway. And in 1986, I opened up Bates Designs on South Michigan Avenue.
Okay.
I put an ad in a newspaper. I had immigrants that came from European countries to come in to show off their sewing skills because they had impeccable tailoring skills that were not really found in our community, although I put out ads for people in my community to come and sew as well. But the people who had the impeccable sewing skills were people that were coming in pretty much from like Poland and from Russia. and I started with that group. I always kept interns around of African Americans who wanted, you know, to increase their skill of sewing, and I still do that right now today. Not just people who have their own sewing skills, but those who want to learn sewing, because I just think it's important to have young people there, and that's really the crust of how I got started. And early on, I met, you know, the GOAT in Chicago, Michael Jordan, and after meeting Michael, my world just kind of changed because so many people wanted to be like Mike. So that meant when teams came into town, he would bring the teams down to my shop. And I started designing for a lot of the athletes, and then word of mouth grew, you know, to the entertainment field of what I was doing. And I started doing things, you know, for entertainers. And then I started getting publicity from the city of Chicago about, you know, girl from West Side, Chicago public school system designs for blah, 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 blah.
Well, you definitely stand up to all of that. I mean, that's remarkable because your fashion is just extraordinary. And I have to say that because you designed a dress for me. And so I'm a little on your side. And of course, this jacket is from you as well. But Monique, you want to ask a question?
I would love to. I'm actually sitting here in awe of the conversation before me because I'm getting a history lesson as well as a fashion lesson at the same time. I got a chance to go on your Instagram earlier today, and I've seen men fashion, women fashion. I've seen bags, I've seen jackets, I've seen pants. Is that what someone can expect when they go into the shop that you have on 21st in Indiana?
So the shop on 21st Street is actually where I make everything. We actually do all of the sewing right there. Sometimes the racks are full and sometimes they're sparse. Right now they're sparse because I'm in the process of working on an upcoming fashion show, so I don't have a lot of time to put things on the rack, and I have a small staff. But people, you can come in and you can ask for something custom to a point. If it's part of my world, then I'll make it. There was a time I would make a prom dress for a goldfish because I needed to pay payroll. But now I just like to do what I like to do. So if you come in and it's too much of, you know, this isn't really a part of what I do, then I'll refer you to other young designers who I think this is their world. They can definitely help you. And I just try to stay in my lane with what I like to do.
Right.
I absolutely love that. You touched a little bit about fashion show. So I want to know everything possible about this fashion show that is coming up, just based off the designs I've seen. I've seen a few runway walks on your Instagram as well. What can we expect from Barbara Bates at this next fashion show? When is it? And how can we, I'm saying I need a ticket. So how do I get a ticket to this fashion show?
So actually, in 2009, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I did not think that I was at risk. I did not have the right information. I thought that women with big breasts got breast cancer. I thought white women got breast cancer, or that you had to have cancer in your family, and all of that's the wrong information. Although I considered myself an intelligent person, and I was not getting mammograms. I had probably had one mammogram in my life. And so it was a time during my life when it was a Job period. If you know the story of Job in the Bible, in 2009, that's what I was. And I would always think to myself, why do people love this story of Job? I mean, he lost his health, he lost his children, he lost his he lost his business. But there was something about him that people loved to tell the story. And so I thought that it was time for me to figure out what the end of that story was.
Right.
And so in 2009, I had become Job. I had a young son who was in college who was fighting a nonviolent low-level drug offense and looking at imprisonment of life for something like that. And so I thought I need to fight and let people know how unjust our system is, that people do things that are wrong, but that the judges should have some discretion to say, okay, well, you know, you get a second chance. 3 strikes is something for baseball, not for life.
Right.
And then my son was actually convicted of it. He was faced with 19 years. He went away on April the 29th to self-report at a federal penitentiary. On that Saturday, I was like in the bed, like crying and holding myself. I felt the knot. And on that Monday, my friends said, you need to go and check it out to see what it is. I was like, oh, it's no big deal. But on that next Monday, I went and I got diagnosed with breast cancer. So my world was in a fog. I had just started like fighting for my son. I had gone to Washington, did mandatory minimum sentence meetings so that people could know how prevalent it was in our community. We need to fight for it. So when I got hit with breast cancer, then I thought I had to fight for myself, and then I could come back on the back end to fight for my son. And so I had treatment at Northwestern Hospital, which my pastor is on is a physician at Northwestern Hospital, so he was able to get me in there. And I went through chemo and radiation. I lost all my hair. I had a port put in my chest because the treatment was so extensive. And then I did another year of something called Herceptin, which was another form of chemo that I would receive through IV. And after I finished my treatment, and other things aspired, like with my son's sentencing being cut short, and then after breast cancer, my new hair came back and my new way of thinking, and I just started telling people about breast cancer. Then I started seeing renewal, and that's what the other part of the story about Job was, that with his unwavering faith, and I never gave up faith. I never said like, why me? Why is all this happening? I never even had a chance to cry because I just couldn't muster up the tears because I was devastated. Like, there's so much going on, but there's something else here, but I could never pinpoint what it was.
Right.
So I thought if I told my business that people would pray for me, and they did, and that I would make it through, and I did. And so everything got renewed. My son came home early, and he was definitely a brand new son. So I lost a son, but I got a new son in what he was.
Amen.
And my business started to prosper, and just the way that I thought about, just life and moving forward, I felt good about it. And then I just felt that I have a voice in the Black community, so I need to let women know how prevalent it is. Because when I started telling people that I had breast cancer, people who I knew started coming out the woodworks or saying, oh, I had it 3 years ago, or I had it 2 years ago. And I thought to myself, well, how come you didn't tell me about going to get a mammogram? Like, why wouldn't you share? But some people don't share their information. So like me, I'll tell my business and I'll tell your business if you tell it to me. So I was just like very opaque about it, but I thought it's time that we get this word out how like serious it is. And at that time, I think Robin Roberts, it was 2009, so she had just started talking about it. So it was all the same time. And so I decided that I would give a fashion show, and I did the fashion show at Northwestern, and I would let women know how prevalent it was, and we would raise money for breast cancer awareness. I had a fashion show, 50 models, all models were breast cancer survivors, and we raised $50,000. And the $50,000, I wanted to give it to Northwestern, but just as I was about to put that check in their hand, something in my spirit told me there's a hospital that's near you that you tell people, if anything happens, don't take me there. Because hospitals in our community, we think that they're less than because they're sitting right in our community. But I had met some people over at Sinai Hospital that's right in the community, and I know how they could have left many years ago because they serviced a very affluent Jewish population back in the day. But now, the community was Latino and African American, but they stayed and they continued, and they have an incredible trauma center very similar to the one at County. And so I thought the $50,000 should go to them. They should get the money. So I made a marriage and an introduction between two hospitals, which I thought should have been just natural, and Northwestern and Sinai became associated, or they became friends. I snatched the check back, gave it to Sinai. After I gave them the check for 50, the president called me like the next week and said, if you could raise $500,000 in 5 years, we'll name a center after you. And I said, no, thank you. I'm not a fundraiser, and I got bills on my desk, and that's not really what I do, but I would always support the hospital. And after about a month of phone calls, I got an anonymous phone call from a donor who said, if you will lend your name and your efforts to this, I'll put up the first $250,000.
Amazing.
And that person did that. In the next 3 years, we did breast cancer walks. We worked in restaurants my friends owned, and people gave us tips. And we raised money, grassroots, a total of $640,000 that we gave to Sinai. And 2 years ago, they named the Barbara Bates Imaging Center. And so the fashion show that's coming up is because once they put your name on something, they hoodwink and bamboozle you into becoming a partner for life. And so I have said I will raise money for them this year. And so that's what the fashion show is.
That is a phenomenal story. I mean, it brings me to tears. But that is a phenomenal story, how you went through those things and you feel like you came out a changed person.
I did. Most definitely I did. And so many women just think, like losing your hair and going through it, that life is over, but life was really just beginning. And the camaraderie of the women come together. It was really like an amazing time. And so it'll be another amazing time for us. October the 19th, a Saturday, and we're actually going to do the fashion show at Mount Sinai, take people on like small little tours over to the Bates Imaging Center, and we actually bought them their very first 3D breast imaging machine. So I'm like really proud to say that I had something to do with that.
Yes, that's huge. Because that's the way to go now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
So this year for the show, we'll use women that are breast cancer survivors, and we're also going to use real women, because I like to say that real women wear baits. Like, people talk about models, and so, size 2s, that's not my customer. My customer is a real woman who is shapely, and so the fashion show will consist of models, real women, survivors. There'll just be like a host of women there, and we'll raise money because Northwestern has given Sinai 2 more 3D breast imaging machines, but just to get them plugged up cost about $90,000. So we're trying to raise the money to get the machines workable.
Okay. That is excellent. That is excellent how you put those two together, and look at the women that will be served from what your contributions have been.
I never really look at it like that. I just look at it like they've bamboozled me again. But I do know that there's something good that comes from it.
So how can we get more information about your fashion show?
So I definitely love to have both of you at the fashion show. It's actually on a Saturday, October the 19th. And you can go to Shop Bates Designs, and it would give you information about how to purchase tickets for the fashion show. I think we're still seating row 1. We'll have like auction items that are there. And we just expect it to be like, a really good fun time, a lot of wonderful networking, and just hopefully a great fundraiser so that they can get those other machines going.
So Shop Bates Designs.
Yeah, shopbatesdesigns.com.
Yeah. Okay, so we definitely want to spread that news.
Yes, and I think this is a perfect time. She talked about Bamboozled. I think this is a perfect time where we share with her that we want to be dressed in Bates fashion while we're there. I not only want to participate and share and donate, I also want to be a walking runway.
Absolutely. And the great thing about that is that we even have, like, some people have lost their loved ones to breast cancer. So we have a situation where you can be a sponsor, and you can, if you pledge a certain amount, that you can walk for that loved one or the friend's loved one who has been lost.
Right.
And we'll put their picture on the screen, but you will actually walk for them, and we have a gift, of a customized like Bates scarf. There's a breast cancer scarf, and you'll walk the runway, the long runway for them as well. So that's just another component to help us raise funds, for the fundraiser. So I would love to dress you, put the tape measure around you. My shop is open from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, Saturday by appointment, and I would love to. I love it when, and not just African American women, but especially African American women. Women that are going to shop anyway, and we spend so much money.
We do.
When they come to me and they shop, because I know that they shop in Neiman's and they shop in Saks, and I shop in those stores, and there's nothing wrong with it. But knowing what I put into what I do, I just love it when women come and they spend money with me. It's not about like what they're spending or how much they're spending, that they believed in me enough, or they saw something in somebody and they just want to come and, and they want to put on a Barbara Bates. Like it's almost like, it's very special. It's very humbling to me, as well when I see that. I'm not sure how to act sometimes about it. It's still new to me.
And when I was on your Instagram account, that's one of the things I noticed, the diversity that was there, the images, the women, the different sizes. And so that's what excited me just going through your Instagram. I actually wanted more. And so to your media team, I tell them now they have not been posting enough. They need to post more of your fashions, because I was really, really inspired just by the pictures that you had there. I was really, really excited and inspired by it. So I'm excited to come to your shop. You will see me very, very soon, because I have a fashion show to prepare for.
Exactly. We all do. We will be there.
I would be happy to have you and happy to dress you as well.
And the funny thing is, the gown that you made for me, everyone asked who made it. And of course I was like, Barbara Bates. And so many people said, oh my goodness, that looks like Barbara Bates. So just being able to wear whatever you made was like an honor for me, because it made me feel so special, because it was just so brilliant. And I felt like I was.
And I saw your pictures. You're beautiful in it. Absolutely beautiful.
I loved it.
And I'm definitely going to start posting more. And I think like one of the reasons that I don't is because I'm like, oh, that's more young people stuff, all that old Instagram stuff. Nobody have time for sharing all their information online and all that kind of stuff. But now I see that people really do respond to it.
Exactly.
Yeah, they do respond to it. Yeah.
So what is it that you feel is out there for you in the next like 5 years?
So Actually, one of the fashion shows, or something that you probably saw on Instagram, there was like a show that I recently did this weekend, and it was in Detroit, and I didn't go for a particular fashion show. I went as a speaker, an inspirational speaker at Perfecting Church, it's the church that Marvin Winans is the pastor of. And I went there to talk about my 40 years, because I'll be celebrating 40 years next year. And one of the people there knew just a little bit about, my trials and tribulations. So I took certain things and turned it to something else. And they're like, we'd like for you to just come and speak about, you're an overcomer. We want you to come and just speak about that. And so I did. And as I talked about, starting from the beginning, up until now, I would stop at intervals when fashion came in, because I started by saying, I'm a fashion designer, that's what I do, but that's not who I am. And then people were sort of like, when I first started, my business, I got accolades, and then I got a phone call from somebody who said, are you the same Barbara Bates that had a baby in high school? And I was like, well, yeah, I am. What's it to you? They're like, no, not that. I went to school with you, and I remember you, and I remember how you talked about being a fashion designer. And I want to say, congratulations, I've been following your career, and I want to know, will you come and speak to a group of girls that are teen moms? And I reluctantly, I said yes, but I had no intention on going, because growing up being a teen mom was devastating. It was, and then not only after you've had the baby, it's still devastating, because people want to guess how old you are once, the child is 10 and you're 12, and they're like, well, how did all that happen? So it was something that just always was a weight on my shoulder. But on the day I was supposed to go speak to those young girls, I actually, I answered the phone. She said, well, just want to make sure you're coming. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to be there. So I had nothing prepared to say, because it was nothing that I ever talked about. It was, my son at that point was probably like, 12. It was just something that I didn't talk about. But when I went there, I walked into the room. There's like 20 young girls, age 11 to 15, all pregnant. And I just stood before them, and I just started pouring out what I remembered about being a teen mom and just going through, life. And as I thought that I was like pouring into them, they would stand up when I said I graduated from high school in 3 years with honors. They stood up and they clapped. And then they showed me the picture with Michael Jordan on the front page, and they thought that they stood up and clapped. And at the end of the day, I found there was something that I had to say, and I was saying it to them. I was telling them my story. I was telling them, you're the same as me, and you can do the same thing. And as I thought I was helping them, that weight that was on my back, that shoulder, that monkey, it just got lifted off, and I just felt so strong that day. Like it's okay. It is just okay now. It's like all good. And so I wanted to give back to them. So I said, if you go back to your school when you graduate, I'll make your prom dress for you. And that next day, not only did I get like 2 of the girls that went back and said they did graduate, but I got called from Chicago Public School System. Hey, we heard about you. You're from CPS and you did blah, blah, blah. We'd like to know if you come speak at, we've got 9 high schools. Would you come and speak at those high schools? So every high school that I went and spoke to, I gave away prom dresses. My friends that worked at the shop, they quit because they said, we're never going to get a raise because you give away more than we take in, because you give away all these dresses. And that's how I became known as the person that does the prom dresses, because I started my foundation giving away dresses to inner city girls that were teen moms, and then I started giving them away to just girls who need it, not the smartest or the brightest or the lightest, the whole thing, but just to girls that were maybe getting a D in school, and I just need somebody to see me, and so I wanted them to be seen on prom. And then I started doing suits for young men. So the foundation has given away like over 1,000 prom dresses, 500 suits to inner city kids. And so that was like, if I had not been a teen mom, no, I wouldn't have been doing that. Had I not been a survivor, no, I wouldn't be doing that. So they had to land on my doorstep. I wasn't savvy or smart enough to just think of it on my own.
Oh my goodness. Well, this has been such an invigorating discussion. And I wish we had more time. We're running out of time, but I really want to thank you for coming.
I appreciate
sharing your story, and it's so inspirational, and how you thought you were doing something for them and they were doing something for you, allowing you to express and release and sit on their couch to tell your story. Yes. So thank you to our co-host.
Thank you for having me.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you so much for looking at A Time of Inspiration, and we will see you next time.
Hello, this is your host Sharon Pulliam of A Time of Inspiration.
A Time of Inspiration is intentional in helping you to become the best you that God has created you to be. My co-host and I, we will come to you every week to inspire you, to uplift you, and give you informative information. My co-host, Dr. Kina Peppers and LaKoya LaShawn, we appreciate you so much for tuning in to A Time of Inspiration.